Hey, how is it going, everybody? This is Andy Pride with Milk and Cookies Total War, and the Seleucid Empire was just released today, so I decided that I'd jump in, hop on Rome 2, and do a faction overview, give you my thoughts on the faction and how they fit into the current metagame. Now, just looking at their unit roster, just from the start, before I really delve too deep into it, I just want to say that they seem kind of imbalanced. When you look at a faction like Egypt, the reason that makes them so difficult to deal with in Rome 2 is because of their unit roster. They have an insane assortment of units of elite, good, and low tier infantry, elite, and low tier cavalry, just so much unit variety. And it means that when you play against them, it's really hard to know what they're going to be bringing. And in a game like Rome 2, where a bunch of the factions like Parthia and Pontus and some of the others are really kind of limited in the effective builds they can bring, when you can bring whatever you want to a battle, it makes it very, very difficult for your opponent to guess what you're going to bring, and it makes it very hard to beat them. Because if you don't bring an army that counters what they have, it's going to be very hard to win. And one thing that's kind of interesting and different about Rome 2 as opposed to Shogun 2 is that in Shogun 2, obviously micro was very important, and macro, in terms of building your army setups, was very important. But in Rome 2, I honestly think that it might be even more important. Micro and like individual unit commands are always going to be important in a Total War game, but in the overall scope of things, creating an army is probably the most important in Rome 2 as it's ever been in Total War. And that's because, like I said, it's really hard to judge what somebody's going to bring if you're a certain faction, but only certain factions are able to do this. Others, like Pontus and Parthia, like I already mentioned, are very kind of cut and dry what you're going to be bringing with them. So with that said, let's just look at the unit roster real quick, and then I will hop into a battle, and not actually play it, but I will show you the unit stats and what they look like, just so you can get a idea of what you want to do with them, and whether you think it's a faction you want to play. So, if we look at their generals right here, they have Scythe Chariots, Shield Bearers, Agema Cavalry, Royal Peltas, Silver Shield Swordsmen, Silver Shield Pikemen, Hellenic Cataphracts, and the Indian Armored Elephants. Now, the Armored Elephants are what I want to go over first, because they cost an insane amount of money. As you can see, they're 1160 talents, which is a ton. But if we look at their stats and compare them to African War Elephants for the Egyptians, we've got 64 melee attack, 80 weapon damage, and the biggest thing here is 930 health. That's insane. That's 33% bigger than the African War Elephants for the Egyptians, I believe. Let's go over them real quick. Yes, the African War Elephants have 685 health. So the Indian War Elephants have almost 33% more health. And we already know how hard it is to kill elephants at some points. So these units right here are going to be really hard to deal with. They are capped at 2. I do think they're going to be very, very powerful units if used properly. And one thing that I haven't really talked about, which I will in some replay here at some point when actually replays get fixed, is that elephants should never really be used in a forward kind of at the front lines, get in there right away kind of thing. I've always thought that elephants kind of need to be played more in a support role. They are more of a supporting kind of troop that backs up your cavalry, tanks for your cavalry, helps you win cavalry fights, and then comes in from behind to do a hammer and anvil. Maybe you saw in the Heir of Carthage game, when Heir sent his, in the third game of our series, when Heir sent his elephants right up the middle into the middle of my Praetorian Guard, he did a lot of damage, but when there's nothing else in the fight and the elephants are taking the brunt of all the damage, they die very quickly. So even with that 685 health, or even 900 health, they still die very quickly. So you want to use elephants more in a support role to hammer and anvil than you do to just send them right up in the middle and just tank everything. If you look at their melee units, they have Silver Shield Swordsmen, Royal Peltas, Thorax Swordsmen, and Hillmen. Now, the Silver Shield Swordsmen are elite of the elite kind of infantry. If we compare them maybe to like a Galatian Royal Guard, they got 43 melee attack, 44 weapon damage, 32 charge, 67 melee defense. So let's look at a Galatian Guard real quick. They have 69 melee defense, 48 weapon damage, which I think is one more, a little bit less attack. No, a little bit more of attack. So they're a little bit better unit overall, the Galatian Royal Guard are, but really these Silver Shield Swordsmen are going to be very, very effective troops, and it just kind of adds to that whole thing where it's very hard to deal with a faction that can bring really good sword units really good pike units, which I'll talk about in a second, and really good cavalry. The Seleucids right now have the best cavalry in the game, so we're actually going to go over to them real quick. And I think this is kind of what's going to make the Seleucids a broken faction. They have insanely good melee cav with the Azat Knights. Like, these are really, really powerful melee cavalry. And they have Royal Cataphracts, which are the Hellenic Cataphracts, which are pretty much just as good as Parthian Cataphracts. I actually do want to go over the stats for those real quick. I want to see what they're capable of doing. So a Royal Cataphract has 35 melee attack and 76 charge bonus, 32 weapon damage. So if we look at the Hellenic Cataphracts, they have, I believe, the exact same stats there. So melee defense is 28. They do have more armor. The Parthian Royal Cataphracts do have more armor. They have 110, while the Hellenic Cataphracts only have 90. Health is 105 for the Hellenic Cataphracts and 105 for the Royal Cataphracts. And then it looks like base morale is a little bit better for the Hellenic. But they are the only faction in the game, the Seleucids are the only faction in the game that have the ability to bring the premier shot cavalry in the game, which are Cataphracts. After patch 3, I believe, Cataphracts got a huge buff and are really, really strong. And also bring really good melee cavalry as well. If you look at the Romans, they have good melee cav, but crappy shot cav. The barbarian factions have good melee cav, but they don't have any shot cav to speak of at all. But the Seleucids are capable of bringing really good shot cavalry and really good melee cavalry, which is crazy. So we're going to go over the Azat Knight stats real quick. Okay, so looking at the Azat Knight stat and comparing them to some of the other premier melee cavalry in the game, the Azat Knights have 32 melee attack, 36 melee or weapon damage, 36 charge bonus, 74 melee defense, which is huge, and I'll get to that in a second, 60 armor, 90 health, and 60 base morale. And then you can see the stats on the screen for the heroic riders. So the biggest difference here is, one, heroic riders are actually 70 more talents than the Azat Knights are. And the Azat Knights have a really insane melee defense stat. 74 is bigger than Asp's Companion Cav. It's bigger than, I think, any other melee cavalry unit in the game at this point. And they only cost, how much do they cost? I think it's 870? 850. So Azat Knights paired with Royal Cataphracts, or Hellenic Cataphracts, is going to be an insane combination. Their cavalry is so good. It's going to be really, really hard to deal with Seleucid Rush Army. Now, what I haven't mentioned yet is their pikes. And I think that's definitely something we should mention here, because they have one of the best top line units in the game with the shield bearers. They have some really good sword infantry. They have the best cavalry in the game. And then they also have one of the best pike units. So we're going to add a Silver Shield Pike unit here, and then go to Mastodon so we can compare the stats of these two, the Foot Companions and the Silver Shield Pikemen. So Silver Shield Pikemen have 46 melee attack, which I believe the Foot Companions share as well. Where's the, okay, Foot Companion is 47, 26 weapon damage, 13 charge. Charge doesn't matter, obviously. So it's the same for both of these. It's 28 melee defense, 80 armor, and 30 health. So melee defense for Foot Companions is, well, they have a chevron, so let me get rid of that. Melee defense is better. It's 7 better for the Foot Companions. And the armor, health, and base morale are all the exact same as the Silver Shield Pikeman. So it is important to note that the Silver Shield Pikeman is 30 more, even though it is slightly worse than the Foot Companions. It does cost a little bit more, but they will be able to deal with Foot Companions one-on-one. They will be able to hold their own perfectly, and they will be able to hold their own against Hellenic Royal Guard as well. So all of this just kind of leads to the conclusion for me that Seleucids are just really, really strong and might be too strong. Now, at the beginning of the video, I compared them to Egypt, and then they can bring so many different kinds of units and still be really, really effective. And I think that, yeah, Egypt and the Seleucids right now are going to be the two factions in the game that really no other factions can really perfectly deal with. They're just really, really well balanced and have, really, they don't have any weak suits. There's nothing weak about either faction at this point. If you look at Rome, they're kind of a little bit slacking on the cav. The Praetorian cav is no longer as good as it was. They will lose to shot cav now. So they have the great infantry and the flexible infantry, but they don't have the cavalry that some other factions have. Then if you look at Macedon, they don't have good sword infantry, and I can just go down the list the entire way. But there are two factions in the game right now that have no problems at all, and it's the Seleucids and it's the Egyptians. So I do think they're kind of broken. Maybe not broken, they're overpowered. They're just really, really strong and don't do anything poorly. So, to kind of end this video, I've kind of gone over the stats, I think, and given you my thoughts on what I think about some of these units. I do want to just show you what they look like, if you are interested in that. I do think the Silver Shield Pikemen look badass. So yeah, they look awesome, but I gotta say that I am getting a little tired of the unit models in this game. They look awesome. The silver shields, like, they have cool looking shields for sure, and we can zoom in on here and show you the detail on that, but it is starting to bother me that all these Hellenic units look the exact same. They don't look any different than foot companions. They don't look any different than a bunch of the elite units in this game. Like, they look very similar to Royal Peltas. They look very similar to so many units, and I want to see unique units for these factions actually look unique. And they have the unique shields, but I mean, they have the exact same armor, exact same helmets, exact same unit model pretty much. So that's kind of getting a little frustrating for me. When you're going to release a new faction, make them look unique. Like, Carry and Axemen have the exact same mask that Silver Shield Pikemen have, and Carthaginian Sacred Band have that same helmet, and it's all just kind of, they all look the same, and it kind of sucks. But here are the Silver Shield Swordsmen. They have the exact same masks. They do have a little bit different armor, and they're called Silver Shield Swordsmen, but they don't have the same shield as the Pikemen, which I guess makes sense, but a lot of these shields aren't silver, so I don't know why they're called that. Doesn't really matter. Hellenic Royal Cataphracts look amazing. Like, this is a unit that actually does look kind of unique. The Scythe Chariots have the exact same mask that these guys have, but I think they're the only other unit in the game that look like this. They do look sweet. I love the armor, the chainmail for the horses. I think it looks great. And wow, how can it see through that? I don't know how a horse is supposed to be able to see through that. I guess that's eye protection, but that's interesting. I've never seen that before. They look really cool though, and really, really powerful. I do want to see how they stack up against a Parthian Royal Cataphract. I think they will lose, but barely. They're still the second best cav unit in the game, easily. So Azat Knights, unfortunately, look the same as Medean Cavalry and Noble Blood Cav and a bunch of others. Same unit model, I think. So that kind of sucks, but they're very, very strong. Like I said, that 74 melee defense is going to make them very, very powerful in tandem with Cataphracts. And then I think the highlight of the Seleucids is the Indian Armored Elephants. These guys look amazing, and CA really did do a great job modeling them, because I think they look absolutely fantastic. Just looking at the armor, like the tapestry hanging down here, and the helmet over the top of his head, it really does look great. And I'm excited to see what they can actually do in battle. I might do a solo campaign with the Seleucids, or I might just wait to do a solo campaign for when the Barbarian Tribe Pack comes out for the Masagatai, the Roxolani, and the Royal Scythians. I'll have to see the unit list for those guys, and then I'll probably make a decision then. But these are the units. Let me see if there are any more that I've missed. No, I think I captured all of the units you would want to see. And yeah, those are my thoughts on the Seleucids. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, maybe learned a little bit. I mean, you could have done this yourself, obviously, but I'm making it a little bit easier on you so you can just watch my video, I guess. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will be bringing you more Rome 2 content shortly, and we'll try to get some replays that aren't corrupted for the Seleucids so you can see them in action. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed. Talk to you later.